Welcome back to Seahawks.com. Hi again, everyone. Tony Ventrella in Kansas City. Behind me and behind the fountain, which is about to erupt, is Liberty Park. There's a World War I memorial in this great city. And, of course, the Chiefs have been here since the early 1960s. That's Game 3 of the preseason, Seahawks against the Kansas City Chiefs. At this stage of the preseason, time is getting short, and the coaches have a lot of work to do. Lots of roster spots are up for grabs. It's more obvious on offense.
When it comes to the competition, the receiver spot comes to mind first. So trying to get a good evaluation of that. And fortunately for us, in the first two games, we've had over 30 passes thrown in each game, so we're getting good opportunities to evaluate that. The next position would be up front and the O-line and the depth of the O-line and where that will lay out with the guards and tackles and who we're going to suit up on game day, the 7 guys. So those are probably the top 2 positions where there'll be a lot of evaluation going on.
The same is true on defense, and so along with the starters getting lots of playing time here in Kansas City, some of the backups will be out there too.
Well, we say the ones are out there, but we'll put some other guys in there that are second and thirds that we need to see against, the starters for the other team, so see how they match up. So, but it's going to be mostly our ones, and we'll still have enough time in the second half to see the other guys.
And, of course, some of the other guys will make the roster and some will not.
There's tough ones at all the positions. I know that's probably a cliche, but, anytime you're dealing with guys' livelihoods and trying to, your first objective is make your team the best. And we've got some guys that's going to be tough no matter what. And, it's too bad, but it's something that goes along with the business, but there's going to be some tough decisions.
Back on offense, one decision that's already been made is that Steve Vallos will start at center in this game.
He'll do well. He's done a great job of taking command at the line of scrimmage and making our protection calls and setting our tracks right on the run game. So I feel very confident that he'll perform well on Saturday night.
And just how important is that offensive center? He's not just a guy who snaps the ball anymore.
He's kind of our quarterback, in our belief. He's our quarterback of the O-line. He sets the tone with the pace of the huddle, getting in and out of the calls made in protections, and certainly in direction of the run game. So that center has to be a great communicator for us because he'll set the tone for the rest of the group.
Let's bring in Claire Farnsworth, our Seahawks insider on Seahawks.com. And Claire, Coach Knapp and Coach Bradley were both talking about, obviously, the use of the number ones, at least for the first half and possibly into the third quarter, but also mixing in others so that they can get a chance to play against the Chiefs' number ones. How important is this, and who are these people going to be? Who are one or two of them?
Yeah, this third preseason game is traditionally when the starters play into the third quarter, so they get used to coming out after halftime and getting used to getting it geared up again to play. But the evaluation process goes on, and that's why I think they want to take a look at some of these guys against the number ones, and a prime example of that is Nick Reed. This guy has been unblockable working against other teams' backup and third team left tackles, but I want to see what can he do against a real, a number one or at least the first backup left tackle of another team. If he can continue to flash and produce like he has, he's already got a foot in the door for a roster spot. If he could do that tomorrow night or tonight, then it would be huge, as far as him getting a spot on that 53-man roster.
I think he'd have both feet in the door and the rest of his outfit as well. Offensive line, of course, comes to mind with some changes because of early season injuries. You got Steve Vallos very much involved now in the quarterback position on the offensive line, basically is what it amounts to. And they're moving all around with Locklear at left tackle. This should be a pretty good test for them.
Yeah, it should. And again, they're playing a 3-4 line. This is the third game in a row, and as Steve Vallos was saying this week, that usually doesn't happen. You're not going to run into 3-3-4s in a row. But Steve says that he is much more comfortable than he was last year when he was thrust into this situation in training camp because of the injuries to Chris Spencer and because Chris Gray had to retire. And then when he started those last 4 games of the season, that allowed him to really kind of get a feel for what the speed of the game is like at this level and making the pre-snap calls, and he really did a good job. And I think that that's Greg Knapp says that's why they decided to go this with him now rather than maybe looking at Max Unger in there. So they're going to leave the right guard spot up to Unger, who will start against the Chiefs and also Mansfield-Roto. But I think it'll be interesting to see how Vallos handles this now that he's back in there as the guy, and we don't know for how long. I mean, Chris Spencer is probably going to be out, as Jim Morris says, into the regular season. Right. So they need Vallos to play at least as well as he did last year when he stepped in.
And then the other question, I think fans are curious about this, and it's really hard to tell, but once this Kansas City game is over, there will be just the one preseason game left against Oakland on Thursday night. How many decisions will still be unmade between now and Thursday, or have most of them, this is pure speculation, have most of them already been made on the roster spot?
Yeah, I think it's going to probably be those roster spots, maybe 42 down to 53. They're looking at the who are going to be the 5th and 6th wide receivers. Are they going to be able to carry a 6th wide receiver because of the injury situation on the offensive line? Which of those defensive linemen do you keep? I mean, for a while there, it looked like they had a lock on their first 8, but now Nick Reed's getting into the mix. Michael Bennett has made an awful lot of plays. A guy that they weren't really even counting on him to be a factor in this thing, and he's in there. And also, the secondary. What are they going to do with some of those spots? So it'll be, as Tim Ruskell, I was talking to him on the practice field on Thursday, and he was saying, "Oh yeah, those 4th preseason games, you got to love them." And if you really like football and you're really into the minutia of those final roster spots, you do have to love it, because you're going to see a lot of those guys, and their efforts in that game is going to determine which guys are still around when they make the final roster cut.
Excellent point, Claire. Thank you very much. Again, it's Game 3, Chiefs and Seahawks. And you'll get the locker room report as well as Claire Farnsworth's work on Seahawks.com very shortly after the game. In Kansas City with Claire, I'm Tony Ventrella, Seahawks.com.